Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. Today we're going to be beginning on a talk about skills in Pathfinder. I wanted to go over all the different skills, give you a little bit of background on them, so you know what they are before you choose them. Let's talk about skills. Every skill is linked to an ability score. So when you're rolling that skill, you add your ability score modifier. So if it's an intelligence-based skill, you add your intelligence modifier. Strength-based, you add your strength modifier. Now, there are certain rules for skills. If you're not under duress or anything like that, traditionally you can take a 10 or 20. Taking a 10 means I'm assuming that I rolled a 10. I'm letting my GM know. There are a lot of circumstances you can take a 10. You're basically taking a little less than average. 10's around average. Because on a D20, 10, 11, that's sort of those middle numbers. So by taking a 10, you're like, I think I'm good at this. I'm just going to take it. And again, in most circumstances, you can take a 10. Taking a 20 is more restricted. Taking a 20 implies I have time, and I can take my time doing this, or try this thing a couple of times, and it wouldn't harm me, and no one's attacking me during this time. Taking a 20 might be like, I'm going to search this room really thoroughly, make sure there's nothing hidden here. I'm going to take my time, I'm not being attacked, I can take a 20. You're considered having rolled a 20. Traditionally, it takes 20 times as long as taking a 10, because it's effectively assuming I've rolled a d20 20 times, and one of them is a 20. That's what it means to take a 20. Now, you can also assist someone else. That means, in most circumstances, when someone else is making a skill check, you can say, like, I'm going to help him out. You would roll that skill yourself. You'd only have to get a 10 on your check, and that means you get your ally a +2 bonus. You get your ally a +2 bonus. It's as simple as that. There are armor check penalty that applies to a lot of the physical-based skills, which means if I have very heavy armor, it might interfere with me climbing a mountain or jumping over a ravine. There are also certain skills that you have to be trained at. Now, most skills, you do not have to have a rank in it to roll it. I could have no ranks in climb, and I can still attempt to climb up. I would just use my strength modifier. That's it. There are a lot of other skills like that where I could just use the ability score it's linked to. But there are certain skills you have to be trained in order to use it. It means that you have to have taken at least one rank in it, regardless if it's a class skill or not. It doesn't need to be a class skill. I just need at least one rank in it to roll this. Okay, so let's start talking about these skills. The first up is acrobatics. It's based around your dexterity. You don't have to be trained to do it, but your armor check penalty does apply. Now, your acrobatics does a number of things. First off, it allows you to balance on narrow ledges or slippery surfaces. It allows you to jump where you're like leaping over a chasm or jumping up to grab something high. It also allows you to move around an enemy without leaving yourself open for attacks. If you're moving around your enemy a lot, you might leave yourself open to an attack of opportunity. I'll explain what they are later on. This is a way I can use my acrobatics to avoid it. And then the last way you can generally use acrobatics for is if I'm leaping down, I could make my fall a little less. Not a lot. I could treat my fall as if it's 10 feet less. For all skills, there's usually some special rules for it, like the action time it takes. Can you retry it? Are there special things associated with that skill? In this case, I'm not going to talk about a lot of those. I'm only going to go over the basics of these skills. So if you want to learn if there's any little extras associated with acrobatics, that you're interested in maybe taking it, read up on it. There might be a little like tidbit here, which would be like, oh, I get that too. So the next skill I'm going to talk about is appraise. Now, appraise is based on intelligence. You can do it untrained. It's as simple as that. No other big fancy things with it. It has one effect, and that's to roll it and tell how much something costs. Depending on how well you roll, depends on how close you get. Your game master will determine by percentage whether you got above or below the price, depending on how high you roll on your appraise check. If I roll really low, I might not know it whatsoever. If I roll mediocre, maybe I can estimate that within 50%. This thing's actually worth 1,000, and I like it. I think it's worth 500. I could get that. And another thing you could do is you could actually look at something and you could figure out, I think this is magical. Now granted, your appraise check won't tell you anything about it being actual magical. Won't tell you what it can do, anything special like that. But you can look at it and you'd be like, oh, I recognize these, this is magical. You can recognize an item as being magical, even though you don't know what it does. Now the next up is bluff. It's charisma based, you can do it untrained. What does it do? It's used to lie and trick people mainly. The main thing I can do with it is I can tell a lie, I can roll my bluff check. They would oppose it by another skill called sense motive. I'll talk about that later, but they oppose it by their skill there, and they try to tell if you're lying or not. Now there are modifiers depending on how believable it is. If you tell a whopper of a lie, you're gonna be really hard to convince someone of it. But if you tell a little white lie that's believable, you might be able to get it past them. The other thing you can do is you can feint in combat. Feinting is a maneuver that pretty much you're going to want to look into as a rogue. Maybe you don't want to use it if you have a lot of teamwork with your allies. But if you don't have a lot of that teamwork where you can flank with someone, I've talked about sneak attack already, feinting is a way of leaving someone open to sneak attack. So I would look into it if you're a rogue. It is useful to other classes. It can leave people open, but it relies on the bluff skill to use that ability. Now there is one last thing you can use bluff for. You can also use to send a secret message. You use your bluff check to send a message, with hand signals or gestures or something to someone else, and they'd have to sort of interpret it themselves too. Alright, next skill. Climb. Climb is strength based. You get your armor check penalty to it. So armor check penalty is what it says, it's a penalty. You climb a surface. The difficulty of a surface depends on what it is. A lot of handholds is easier than a smooth stone wall. It's as simple as that. Smooth ice would have a penalty to your roll, stuff like that if it's very slippery. Climb is very simple. Now there's a couple other things you can do with it. If you're falling, you can try to catch yourself with climb, or if someone else is falling near you, you can attempt to catch it with it. If I'm kind of hanging down, I can try to catch someone as they're falling next to me. It's like we're all climbing a wall, I'm sort of towards the bottom, I've got a really great climb, my buddy falls, I'm going to try to use my climb to grab him and sort of keep on the wall with saving him. So that's climb. Next up is craft. Craft is an intelligence check, you can use it untrained. So for all the skills we've talked about, you can use untrained. I am not going to go into the majority of details about crafting. What it means is I can spend time and money and make items. Not magic items, I can make normal armor, weapons, equipment, alchemical gear, gear of any kind, or other just mundane items you want to make. You can make a frying pan if you want. You could make a house with craft. You can make a boat with craft. Craft is physically making something, and it is representative of not just one skill. When you take a craft, you have to choose a specialization. You have to be I'm good at crafting carpentry. I'm good at crafting armor. I'm good at being a blacksmith. I'm good at crafting weapons. I'm good at crafting bows. You sort of say a general group of items that you're good at crafting, and when you roll a craft check, that's what you get. Now you can use craft untrained, but it's the kind of skill that the higher your skill in it, the faster you go. I'm going to say that now. That's what really your higher skill means, you do it faster. Craft checks take place over the course of a week, meaning it's time consuming, and you have to use material that costs a third of the total price of whatever you're making. Now, I'm not going to go into any of the other rules. It involves some math, it involves some time, but crafting is the kind of thing that if your team has a lot of time in between adventures, you can do it. You can sometimes do some crafting on the road. Usually they've got rules for that you can do a couple hours a day maybe on it. You wouldn't get as much progress done. Anyway, but that's crafting. And as I said, you can also craft alchemical things. There's an entire list of equipment like acids and alchemist fires, which are primitive napalms, or things that might give you bonuses against poisons, antitoxins as they're called. Alchemical gear is an entire special type of gear that's usually a little more expensive than your average stuff, but it's made through a level of science, not magic. It's alchemy. Anyway, so that's crafting. So next up is diplomacy. Diplomacy you can also use untrained. It's charisma based. It's a lot of what it sounds. I can use diplomacy to make a creature's attitude improve. I'm talking to this person, I'd roll diplomacy, and whatever his attitude is, I could improve it a little bit. Now, you can only improve someone's attitude so much. You can take feats or racial abilities which increase your ability to improve their attitude, but I can effectively, change a situation, diplomize it, that maybe I'm not going to get into this fight with this guy, or maybe I can convince this person to do something for me. It's using your words in a manner that convinces someone of something else, whether it is to be more friendly towards you or to help you out. And it's not using any lies. That would be bluff. The other thing you could use diplomacy for is gathering information. This, rather than using the check against one person, I use the check against an area. I can go around a town. I use my diplomacy. I roll the one check for everybody I speak to. I speak around town, see if they have any information that I need. Okay, so the last skill I'm going to talk about today is Disable Device. Disable Device is a trained skill. It's our first one. You need to have a rank on it to roll it. It's dex-based. You get your armor check penalty. So what does this trained skill do? It does two different things. The first off is disabling. Just like it says. You disable a trap or some kind of mechanics that you can go in there and you can make it not work. Or you can make it not work for you, or whatever it is. It's disabling a trap. This is what you use Disable Device for. Disable a trap. This is what a rogue would use, since I talked about trap finding in a rogue before. They would use Disable Device in their check to get rid of it, to disable it. The other thing you could use Disable Device for is opening locks. Now, Disable Device, you can't take a 20 on opening a trap because there's actually a chance that if you fail it, you could set the trap off. While opening a lock, there is no penalty for taking a 20. So if you have the time, I will give this to you now. Take a 20 at opening a lock. It will tell you if there's any way to do it. Now granted, it might take you like a minute or two to do this, because you're spending all the time to do it. And it's not really the stealthiest thing if you're trying to quickly open a door. But if you have the time and you have the patience, you can do it. Okay, that's all the skills we're going to talk about today. We're going to have more next time. We're probably going to get through most of them in the next time we talk about Pathfinder, in the next couple of episodes. So please, if you have any questions about any of these skills or questions about anything, any kind of comments, leave them down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. And please, we're always looking for more citizens. Please, please, please subscribe. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.